When you're working with Dolby Atmos or any other surround sound format, you quite often have the issue that you need to take audio that has been either recorded or produced with a lower channel count and upmix that to an appropriate channel count for your particular application. And for this particular purpose, there are upmixing plugins. And today I'm going to look at one of those. It's called Panteo from a company called Perfect Surround. And let's have a look at how good that actually is. So let's get started. But first of all, hello everybody. In case you're new here, my name is Michael Wagner. I teach at the Antoinette Westphal College of Media Arts and Design at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And on this channel, I talk about digital media, game design, and spatial audio. If any of those topics interest you, I invite you to subscribe or join my Discord community. Invite link is in the description below. And since you're already at it, also please don't forget to press the like button, especially if you get any value out of my videos. It really helps out the channel and makes my videos more visible to other people. Thank you. I need to start with a disclaimer. The developer of the plugin that I'm going to show you today actually reached out to me a couple of months ago, and they provided me with a review license of the plugin, a time-limited license that actually expired by the end of 2022. But they didn't get any say on what exactly I'm going to show you or how I'm going to make that video. They also didn't see the video in advance. So everything that I'm going to show you and everything that I'm going to talk about is strictly my own opinion. Nothing of this is going to be sponsored. So let's first have a look at what we're actually talking about. The plugin that we're talking about is called Panteo, and in particular we are looking at the high-end version of Panteo, which is called Panteo 16 Pro Plus. And it is advertised as a conversion plugin, an upmixer plugin, downmixer plugin that can essentially take any channel count audio and turn it into any other channel count audio. And one of the selling points of this plugin is really the huge flexibility, the enormous amount of different configurations that you have in terms of input as well as output. And the fact that it is a plugin that allows you to upmix and downmix in a way that is very, very well suited for any professional application. Now, before I have a look at the plugin itself, I need to address the elephant in the room, at least for me. And that is, when I first looked at the website, I was immediately turned off a little. And the reason for that is because the website doesn't look particularly professional. Now, in the college that I'm teaching in, we do have a web design program and a user experience design program. And I do know what we do require our students to produce. And this would not be at the level that we would actually kind of expect our students to be able to design. And that is kind of weird. And this is particularly weird because the plugin is actually fairly expensive. If you look down, there are three versions. And let me see here. And the version that we're talking about today comes in at $700 US. So we have a very, very expensive plugin that is kind of advertised through a slightly lackluster website, which is a little bit weird. Now, there are really two reasons why a company might not pay too much attention to the design of their website. And the first one is that this might be a solution that is exclusively targeted at professionals. So people who actually know exactly what they're looking for, people that are not going out on Google and kind of Googling the things that they need, but rather kind of talk within them among themselves and kind of get recommendations from other professionals. And in this particular case, the website itself doesn't really make that much difference. And the second reason is that the plugin is overpriced. I have also seen that some companies think they have a very, very high-end solution, but then in the end, it doesn't really turn out that way, and they can't get the website together and just kind of try to charge a lot of money for something that people don't really find that interesting at all. Now, without spoiling the result, I think in this particular case, the truth is somewhere in the middle. I do know that this plugin is very well received among professionals. It has its uses in very, very professional applications. But at the same time, the company is currently trying to reach out to regular bedroom producers, people that have just started with Dolby Atmos, for example, and are getting into the production of Dolby Atmos music. And for this particular target market, the website and the pricing doesn't really match. So my recommendation, if somebody from Perfect Surround is watching, my recommendation was to professionalize your website. And I think if you professionalize your website, you will be able to reach regular consumers much, much easier than you currently do. Now with that out of the way, let's have a look at the capabilities of this plugin. And it comes in 3 different versions. It comes in a simple version or a kind of a 3D version, an immersive audio version, which they call Panteo 360. That only has a couple of, that only has limited number of audio formats that it supports. There is a medium version, and then there is the high-end version. That's the one that we are going to look at, which has, according to the website, 48 audio formats and binaural rendering. And the thing that's really unique is that they also provide channel configurations for Sony 360 RA. I think that's fairly unique. I haven't seen that anywhere else, so in that particular sense, they are unique. But with that being said, let's have a look at how it sounds and what we can do with it. So let's open up a project. Now, as always, I'm going to start out with a very, very simple project. What I've done today is I've simply taken a loop from I'm not completely sure, it comes either with Cubase or Nuendo, and I put that into a very simple Dolby Atmos project. Here's the loop there. The loop is then routed into a 7.1.2 bus, which serves as the Atmos bed. And this bed is then essentially used as an Atmos bed in an Atmos project. On the Dolby Atmos bus, we have the Dolby Atmos renderer. If you are interested in how to set that up, I am going to post a link to a couple of videos below where you can actually see how I'm actually setting up Dolby Atmos projects in Cubase. And essentially, first of all, let's have a brief listen on how that actually sounds. Now, because this is just a stereo loop, what's going to happen is that because this is routed into the bed, only the first channels in the Atmos bed are going to be active. But let's have a listen on how that actually sounds. Once again, it's a simple loop that comes with either Cubase or Nuendo. And as we can see, we only have left and right channel active. Now, obviously, what we could do is we could simply kind of move that around, and then essentially we would create activity in the other channels, but this might not be the best way to achieve sort of full immersion. What you normally would like to do is to have some sort of way how you can actually convert that stereo signal into a full 7.1.2 signal, sort of upmixing it. And as you're upmixing it, you also want to make sure that while you're upmixing it, it is also compatible with any downmix. So the one thing that you want to avoid is that that you don't want to upmix it in such a way that in case somebody is going to listen on it on a stereo system, the downmix back to the stereo system is destroying the original kind of loop. So what you normally would like to have is you would like to have something that is capable of taking the stereo signal, upmixing into a full immersive 7.1.2. in such a way that in case you are kind of downmixing it again to stereo, the signal essentially remains unchanged. And this is sort of the type of plugin that we are talking about here. Now, obviously, one of the things that this means that in this particular video, the audio that you're going to hear, because you're all going to hear that on a stereo system, is not going to change at all. So are kind of almost not changing at all, right? Because if the plugin actually works, then the upmix should actually have no effect on the downmix that you're hearing over YouTube. So what I'm going to do, or what I'm going to try to do today, is I'm going to try to show you with the plugin itself how the audio is actually kind of dispersed immersively in the three-dimensional space, but the actual experience that you guys are going to have on YouTube is actually not going to change much. You're not going to hear any difference, and that's actually by design. So let's go into a little project. And the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to reset the panning that I've done here, because I want to actually kind of return that to its original state, that we have a regular stereo signal. Let me just double check if it's stereo. Yes, we are kind of back to a stereo signal. And let's open up the bed channel, the bed track. And in the bed track, what we're going to do is we're going to add an instance of our Panteo. So let's search for Panteo. And here we are, the upmix downmix, and this is the plugin itself. Now, while the website kind of is slightly weird in terms of user interface design, the plugin is okay. So it's not going to wow me in any way or shape or form, but it is functional, and I think that's the important thing here. And what we can do is we can also open up the visualizer. Now, there are a couple of things that we need to do, and the visualizer will essentially show us the configuration of the system. system that we're currently working with. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the channel configurations are correct. So the input signal is a stereo signal, so that is what we have here. And the output signal, we need to set that. That is an Atmos 9.1.6 by default. We are going to set that to 7.1.2 because that is, once again, the channel configuration. Now, one thing that you need to be careful is that as you are kind of loading up the default channel configurations, what you're going to see is you're going to see a default channel order. And this channel order does not necessarily kind of confer or kind of correlate to the channel order that the digital audio workstation is expecting. In this particular case, you might see that the default order is left, center, right, whereas Nuendo actually expects left, right, center. So we need to change that, and the first thing that we need to do is need to change that. And in order to do that, we're going to click on the settings button. And in the settings button, here we have the output order. And for the output order, we're going to go to left, right, center, and then we have the LFE, and then the surrounds, and then the rear surrounds. And as soon as we do that, we should have the correct order. So be sure when you use the plugin that you actually have the channel order set correctly to match whatever digital audio workstation you're using and whatever kind of the digital audio workstation demands from you or the particular application demands from you. And this should now create an upmix. So let's just play our little audio again. And as you can see what this is doing now, it is taking the stereo signal and it is converting it into a full 10-channel audio. And it is doing it in such a way that it's not going to affect the actual output that you guys are hearing, because once again, the downmix is exact. That essentially means that the upmix is not creating any issues for downmixing. What you're going to hear on the system is the downmixed version of what I've upmixed here, and that essentially is the same as the original source. So if we kind of turn it off, you're not going to have a lot of it. The gain is a little different. You might have noticed that, but other than that, everything is exactly the same. Now you have a couple of options here. You can kind of move the emphasis on the individual channels. So for example, you can emphasize the surround sounds or the rear surrounds or the upper by kind of using these sliders here. And the other thing that you can do is you can, for example, if you click here on gain, you can essentially change the gain of each individual channel. Now it will tell you that once I'm changing the gain, so for example, let me just turn that down a little, you will essentially see that the downmix is no longer true to the original source. So now it's actually changing it a little. So that's one of the things that I think is really nice in this particular plugin, that it essentially allows you to have full control about how accurate the downmix is from what you've actually been upmixing to. So let me just stop that. So all in all, this is a really nice plugin. The question now is it really worth the money? In this particular case, the $700 they're asking for. Now, one thing that needs to be mentioned is that for plugins of these types, prices are very, very high. These tend to be very expensive, primarily because the typical applications are professional applications in the movie and television industry, where you have to upmix ambient sounds to a channel format that is suitable for your particular movie or TV production. So these are usually high-end productions that need these types of plugins. One of the things that kind of got me wondering a little was the fact that they have so many different channel configurations. So for example, they are kind of advertising Dolby Atmos channel configurations from 2.1.2 up to 9.1.6. And that is one thing that kind of always puzzles me a little, because kind of if you look at what Dolby Atmos really is, it is an object-based format. So on the production side, really the only channel counts that are relevant to you is 7.1.2 for the bad channels, and then essentially mono for the objects. That's really all there is. And while Atmos systems can have different channel configurations, during the production phase, you never actually work with those channel configurations. You only work with 7.1.2, and you're working with mono and with stereo, which essentially is usually split up into two mono signals. So kind of all these different Dolby Atmos channel configurations are really at least in my understanding, not that particularly relevant during the production process. Now, if you are of a different opinion, I would like to really hear from you, because I'm really curious about that, because I see that quite often that plugin makers are creating these large number of channel configurations and calling them Dolby Atmos, while in reality, if you're producing, you're really only producing in 7.1.2 and stereo or mono. Now, I also have to say that there are some people who kind of use objects as a way to replace higher channel configurations. So what you can do is you can sort of trick the system into using higher channel configurations by using objects in order to represent the speakers of a higher channel configuration bed. But that's generally not something that professionals would do in a professional environment. If you're doing movie production, if you're doing TV production, you usually stick to the specifications, and that is 7.1.2. So all the others are really not that particularly useful. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think. If this is really something that what am I missing here? Why is this so important to plugin manufacturers to provide these channel configurations where they are actually of very little relevance during the actual production process? Now you can actually see what I'm talking about if you go to their own website, and that is sort of if you look through the endorsements that the individual mixers provided, or the individual producers really provided. If you go through through these endorsements, you will see that many of them specifically refer to their use of these plugins in order to upmix to 7.1.2. So here, for example, or the next one also 7.1.2, or kind of the upmix to 7.1.2. And the reason for that simply is because, once again, that is the channel count that you need for Dolby Atmos bed. Anything else you actually don't really need as a professional producer who is working with Dolby Atmos. But once again, let me know if I'm missing something. I would be really interested to learn if there are any people out there that actually kind of need these higher channel counts during the production process of Dolby Atmos content. Now, as we're talking about upmixers, it also makes sense to talk about what's the competition. And if you're watching my channel, you might have noticed that I sometimes actually use an upmix plugin. And the one that I'm actually using is Nugen Halo upmix. And that is one that I personally like. It is not exactly inexpensive either. It's actually more expensive than the Panteo plugin, and it is less capable because it only goes up to 7.1.4. But actually, once again, that is actually good enough for what I need. So I actually don't need kind of going up to higher channel counts, because once again, Dolby Atmos 7.1.2 is sort of the maximum that it can do. Now, in order to see the difference, it actually makes sense to just kind of do the same thing that we just did with Panteo in our little project and use Halo upmix instead. So let's go back into our little project. So here we are. So let's load up an instance of Halo upmix. Halo upmix, and kind of Halo upmix works similarly, but at the same time a little bit different. There are many of the functions that you have are very similar. At Halo upmix also you have the capabilities to make sure that you have an exact downmix, so you can press this button here and you have an exact downmix, and similarly you have certain controls over the width in this particular case of the channels. Now, as I said before, Halo upmix essentially only is capable up to 7.1.4, and it will automatically detect the type of input that you have and essentially kind of the type of upmix that it needs to do. So let me just disable the Panteo plugin. And let's start up Halo upmix. Now the visualization obviously is different, but in essence the kind of function is pretty much the same. So this is the Halo upmix plugin. We also have some control over what goes into the LFE channel if you want that. So let's turn that off, and let's turn the Panteo plugin on. So it's really a matter of preference. These two plugins have pretty much the same functionality. Once again, the Panteo plugin has more options in terms of channel configurations, but that might not be that important to you. And also, and that's actually one of the things that I'm actually a little bit surprised that I'm saying that, but with $700, the Panteo plugin is the cheaper one. So the Halo new gen version is actually more expensive than that. So what's my final verdict? Well, I already have Halo new gen upmix. I actually kind of and if you're interested in these types of plugins, but you don't really need it immediately, one thing that I would recommend is just wait for a sale. New gen has quite frequently a sale. So what I essentially did is at some point I picked up the regular upmix version on a sale, and then I added the 3D extension. That's the one that allows you to go up to 7.1.4, because in the regular version it only goes up to 7.1. And with these two sales, it was actually not that expensive. It was still quite a bit of money, but not that expensive. But if you need something immediately, both options really good. Kind of Panteo, certainly a good way to go. Don't let the website distract you. I think it's a very good plugin. It works exactly as intended. If you are a bedroom producer and you are just doing that for fun, and you have just started up with Dolby Atmos, this is probably not something that you would actually need. This is a plugin that is mainly meant for professionals who need these type of upmixing plugins in their professional workflow. So if you're producing movies, if you're producing television series, if you are doing anything on a very professional level, and you have surround sound ambiances that you need to upmix to the new formats, then these are plugins that you need. But quite frankly, if you need those, you probably already have them. If you're a regular bedroom producer, I would recommend staying away, or at least wait for a sale and then kind of pick one up if you think you really need that. It quite frankly also depends a little bit on your financial means. Kind of if $700 is nothing for you, then obviously go for it. But for most of us, this is actually a little bit too expensive to be used in a regular bedroom production. Now, this is really everything I wanted to say today. Thank you again for watching my videos. Once again, I would be really interested to learn if the higher channel counts are actually useful for you during the production process. I don't really see the need for those. I think you are fine if you have something that can upmix to 7.1.2, but I'm willing to learn. And if you have any questions or comments, please use the comment section below or join my Discord community. And with that being said, see you at the next video.